StrayAllDay.com.
The show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. What is that? That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today, we're going to do something a little bit different than what we have normally done on the Work on Your Game masterclass. Today, I am going to answer questions today, and who knows, this might be a 3 or 4 part series depending on how quickly I go through these questions. I'm going to answer questions that I got from people who are in my texting community. So before we get started, let me remind everybody that I have a daily motivation text. This is the texting community that I'm talking about. I send out this text every morning. I call it the daily motivation. It goes to everybody in my text community. It's guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point to start your day. And the proof is in the pudding that I have all these people who sent me questions from that text community. So not only do I send out the daily motivation, but every now and then I will send out other texts aside from the daily motivation questions about how you can, or questions that sometimes I'll just solicit questions, stuff like this. Like, ask me a question. What's a question you want to know about business? Or one question you could ask me that I can answer. These people sent in questions. I picked the best ones. I'm going to be answering them over this episode. And again, depends on how long it takes me to answer these questions. So this may be a 1 episode, 2, 3, 4 episodes. We'll see as we get into this. But also that daily motivation comes out every single morning. And to get this text, to be part of my text community, here's what you got to do. Just text me right now, my number. Here's the number, 305-384-6894. Every morning when that daily motivation text goes out, because you're a member of the text community, you'll be receiving that message. So if you want to be a member of the text community, and next time I ask a question, you want to get involved or get an answer from me or have your question read on the air and addressed, like I'm about to do in this episode, then all you got to do is be a member of the text community and look out for it when I send the next one out. So with all that said, and also Work on Your Game University. How can I forget Work on Your Game University? That is the place where you work with me directly. That is the only place to be coached by me. We just opened a new group coaching program. Again, I have not announced exactly what it is. I don't know if it'll be, I may decide to start announcing it and telling people about it directly. That is, if you go to workonyourgameuniversity.com, you'll see your options for getting started with us. The worst case scenario, even if I don't announce it, and I never announce publicly what it is, you can always go to workonyourgameuniversity.com, schedule a call with me or somebody on my team. And once we get to talking to you, we see that you're a good fit. We'll tell you about the program and tell you exactly how to get started. And we make it super, super easy. So you go to workonyourgameuniversity.com, number 1. You get on a call with us, number 2. We tell you the program, number 3. You get started, number 4. That simple. We really make it that simple for you to get coached and get help directly by us. And we have opened a new group coaching program that we make it easy for everybody to be able to get in, to get coached, and not only get coached directly by us, me and my assistant coach, but also for you to mastermind and connect with other like-minded people, especially entrepreneurs and professionals who are serious about growth. I talk to a lot of you who tell me that's really the main thing you need. I need to connect with other people who are serious, other people who are going somewhere, other people who are trying to do something. Dre, where do I meet these people? Well, guess what? I've created that space for you. I have created it. I have cultivated that. All you got to do is go to workonyourgameuniversity.com and we will go from there. So with all that said, let's get into this. So as I said, I sent a message to everybody in my text community. It was a couple thousand people. A few, by the time you hear this, it'll have been a month or 2 ago. And I said, what's one question that you would like me to answer for you? And those who send to me the best questions, I'm going to pick them. I'm going to answer them somehow, some way. So all these answers are going to end up here on this episode, or these episodes, if it ends up being multiple episodes of the Work on Your Game masterclass. So let's get into this. What I'm going to do is read the person's name, first name of the person who asked the question, and their location, and then I'll answer the question, because I believe these questions are questions that others would have as well, aside just from the person who asked the question. I think these are universal questions, because in the years that I've been doing this content creation thing, even back to the basketball days, which was 2005 through 2015, and then into the mindset / personal and professional development days, which started about 2010, so we had about 5 years of overlap. 2010 to now, the last 13 plus years, I've noticed that there are certain questions that I get asked over and over again. And this is one of the reasons why I create content, because I'm answering questions so that I don't have to keep answering the same question over and over again. So I think many of these questions are questions that either some of you already have but have never asked or never had them answered appropriately or satisfactorily, or questions that maybe you never thought of, but now once you hear them, you're like, damn, that's a good question. And you'll be glad to hear the answer. So let's get into it. First question. And we don't know how many I got here. Actually, I do know how many I got. I got 41 questions, but again, some of these may take more time, some of them may take less. So we'll see how many episodes this takes. Number one, question from Drew, who is in Minot, North Dakota. He said, Dre, if you could go back and tell your 24-year-old or young 20-year-old self anything, what would you tell him? So let's assume that Drew is maybe around that age in his 20s. What would you tell your younger self is basically the question. The good news for this is I've already answered this question. I answered this in episode number 3. Number 3 of the Work on Your Game podcast. Things I would tell my younger self. So go listen to episode number 3. It is linked down below in the description, or you can just go to workonyourgamepodcast.com. And also in episode number 224, I explained that we all talk to our younger selves. So anything that I share here on this platform, anything that I share is something that the day that I'm recording it, I wish I had known it the week before or the day before or the year before or the month before. So everything that I'm sharing here is not just stuff that I'm telling you, listener, for you. I'm saying this stuff to codify it in my own mind as well. So a lot of things that I say here on the show, I'm telling myself at the same time that I'm telling you, because every time I say it, I'm reinforcing it in my own mind. So this is not just me giving the game to you, it's also giving the game back to myself. So I had to know it to be able to share it, but also let's keep in mind, folks, just because you know something, quote unquote, does not mean you are implementing it. So sometimes I record stuff on the show and I'm like, damn, that was a good point that I made right there. I need to listen back to that and remind myself of the thing that I just told you all, right? Because if you look at what number episode are we on here, we're all the way up 2,600 plus episodes of this show. I'm not constantly remembering every single thing I've ever said in the history of this show for myself. So I had to remind myself of some of these things too. So everything that I would tell my younger self is everything that I say here on this podcast, Drew. So it's a good question, but the answer is every single thing you ever heard me put out is the things I would tell my younger self. If I had to pick one thing specifically, I would say get into personal development sooner. So if you just want one answer, one thing besides the 2,000 plus episodes, get into personal development as quickly as possible. Invest in personal development, meaning taking your money and pay money to get into coaching, courses, programs, books, masterminds, etc. Number 2, this question comes from Paul, who is in Houston. He says, how do I discover what I'm passionate about? Now, this is a good question. I'm going to answer this question. I'm also going to replace this with a better question. So the main thing here for Paul and for everybody who's looking for this is the main thing you want to look for is not what you're passionate about, but where your energy is going. Because where your energy is going is really where you're going to be able to put in the work and put in the time and effort that it would take to actually be, what's the word that I want to look for here? To make yourself substantial and valuable and useful in that space, because you can be passionate about something but never put the time in to actually get anything out of it. See, I can be passionate about, let me think of something that I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about music when I hear a song that I like or an artist that I connect with, but I'm not going to make any money from my passion in music because I'm not a musician. I'm not a rapper or a singer or a producer. I don't play any instruments. So I can be passionate about music, but it's not going to make me any money. I'm not going to make myself a contributing member of society because I'm passionate about music. I don't want to write about it. I don't want to be a musical critic. I don't want to do any of that stuff. Now, maybe there are some people who are into that stuff, but I'm not. So yes, you can find your passion, but what you really want to do is find your energy. Where is your energy going? So, Paul, when you have time to do anything that you want to do, what are you doing? When you're not at work, you're not at school, you don't have any commitments, you can do anything that you want. What are you doing with that time? That's where your energy is going. That may not necessarily be your passion, but it's where your energy is going. That's the thing that you really would want to focus on. So I'm assuming here, I'm making an assumption that when people ask about their passion, they're trying to figure out what they want to do with themselves. I would suggest you follow where your energy goes, because that's the place, again, that you'll be willing to put in the time and the work that it would take to turn that effort into something that is worth something. Because you could be passionate but never dedicated or disciplined enough to do the work. Like we talk about in my book, The Third Day. You can be very passionate, but if you don't put the work in, then who cares that you're passionate? You can be passionate about something, so what? All right, nobody pays you for passion. People will pay you for production, and production usually follows focus, which is a force multiplier, attention, effort, and energy. So what I would suggest, instead of looking for passion, look for energy. But to answer your question, how would you discover what you're passionate about? Well, I don't think your passion is something that you discover. I think it's something that you uncover. And because to discover means you go looking around for it. It's not outside of yourself. I mean, you're passionate about whatever it is you're passionate about. So you would uncover it by trying different things, going into different spaces in life, dipping in and out of different circles, and just seeing how you energetically and attention-wise and focus-wise respond to different things that you try out in life. So try different things, and that's where you can find that thing that you're ideally, Paul, you want to find something that you're both passionate about and you give energy to. If you can find something that's both, that'd be great. So I'm passionate about giving people the game, like what I do here on the show, but I also will give my energy to it. I'm willing to sit here and record episode after episode after episode and write books and do Instagram reels and make YouTube videos and make courses and coach people and do live events. I'm willing to do all of those things which require energy to serve my passion. So ideally, what you want is something where you have both passion, that means you care and you give a damn, and energy, meaning you're willing to put in the time and the work even when it is hard and is difficult. You find that, then you can find the sweet spot. So Robert Greene, my favorite author, he's the author of the 33 Strategies of War, 48 Laws of Power, the 50th Law with 50 Cent, and several other books. One of the things Robert talks about is that when he wrote the 48 Laws of Power, which was his first book, and that was the book that kind of blew him up. That book probably has sold more than all his other books put together. When he put out the 48 Laws of Power, he was in his late 30s. He was probably like 38, 39 years old when that book came out, and that was his first thing that got him known. So 38 years, he had been trying different things, and he talks about, if you ever listen to any interviews that Robert's done, that he had a whole bunch of jobs in his young adulthood, tried a bunch of jobs. He worked in, he did work with his hands. He worked in Hollywood. He worked in all kinds of places, just trying all kinds of different things that were not connected in any way. It's not like he was like, I'm going to be a writer, and he tried all these writing jobs, and then he hit the book. That's not what happened. He tried a whole bunch of jobs that didn't have anything to do with writing, but he would just see all these different things, and all these things he just cataloged in his mind that he was experiencing dealing with different people. And then when he met this guy who was in a book publisher, this guy just happened to ask him, hey, you got any ideas for a book? And Robert said, yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. Because he had experienced so many different things in life and worked with so many different people, he had this whole idea of how power games work, because he had been so many places. So he saw how people would use power or abuse power or have it used against them. So he said, oh, what about this book where I write about power and the different ways that people use it and abuse it and mess it up and use it the right way? And the guy said, oh, that's a good idea. Go write that book. And that book became the 48 Laws of Power. The whole point being he had tried so many different things. He figured out that his passion was the writing, and he was willing to put the time into the writing. Because if you read the 48 Laws of Power, that is not a little book. All right, that's not a thin book. That's a long book. It is a very detailed book. It is a thoroughly researched book. There's a lot of effort that goes into writing a book like that. That is not an easy write. So that's where he found that mix between the two. So good question, Paul, there. It answered a bunch of different questions besides the one you answered, but I think that'll help you more than just figuring out your passion. Because again, you can be passionate and still not contribute anything to yourself, your family, or society. So I expanded that question to give you a better answer. Number 3. Oh, and by the way, everybody, in Work on Your Game University, this is the kind of thing that I do. I take the question that you ask and I answer not only your question, but I answer an even better question to give you what you really want, which might not be what you thought you needed, or not even what you asked, but we go deeper. But that is my superpower as a coach, is what I'm supposed to do. Number 3, and we're answering questions from my texting community. So if you want to be in the next round of questions that get answered from my text community, you have to actually be in the text community by texting me at my number, which is listed down below in the show notes. Number 3, question is from Taylor, who is in Lakeway, Texas. Question is, how did you shift your mindset from motivation to discipline? And this is an interesting question. I'm not sure I ever announced that I had shifted my mindset from motivation to discipline, but so let's answer the question anyway. So I think I get what Taylor is intimating here, that one of the things that Taylor has probably heard, I don't know if Taylor is a male or female, but one of the things that Taylor has probably heard me say is that discipline is more important than motivation, which it is, because motivation can come and go. And motivation, even though motivation is not a bad thing, it's a good thing. I mean, after all, I send out a text called the Daily Motivation. There's a reason why I send it out every day, because yesterday's motivation is not going to get you motivated today. And motivation itself is not going to last. It usually might not even last all day. That's why I say the text will start your day focused, sharp, and on point, but you still need something better than that for the rest of the day, which is why we have Work on Your Game University. So instead of asking how I did it, first let me answer why I did it. I just told you briefly, but the main thing is that discipline is the hallmark of the professional. And the definition of a professional is someone who does something as their main paid occupation. The reason someone can do something as their main paid occupation is because they are consistent and they're dependable. You know what you're going to get from them over and over again. And discipline is what allows you to do something over and over again, even when you're not motivated to do it. Because there are days that I don't feel motivated to go to the gym, but I still go to the gym. Or not motivated to sit down and write, but I sit down and write. Or not motivated to turn the mic and record, but I still record. Or not motivated to get on the phone and do sales calls or coaching calls, but I still get on and do the thing. And you have probably heard me say, there are times that I don't feel like recording an episode of the show, but if you listen to every episode of the show, I guarantee you can't point out the episode where I didn't feel like recording, because the final product still comes through at the same level of quality, whether I felt like it or I didn't feel like it. The output is still exactly the same. That's what a professional does. So understanding that as a professional, and this goes back to my background in sports and in my current role as an entrepreneur, understanding that you got to show up every day and do the work regardless of how you feel. That's why I prefer discipline over motivation. So the shift is all about, first of all, understanding it, number one, accepting it, number two, and then you need a process to make this actually happen, which is number three. And that's why you hear me say structure creates discipline. So how do you put that structure in place? Well, two resources that I can point you to. Number one, I have a 30 Days to Discipline course and framework inside of Work on Your Game University. And number two, the Bulletproof Mindset framework inside of Work on Your Game University. So in other words, I coach people on how exactly to do this. So your question, how do you do it? 30 Days to Discipline and Bulletproof Mindset. This is why you hear me, when I talk about Work on Your Game University, I tell you all that the very first thing that we do when you come into the university is work on your mindset. Is the number one thing we start with is the mindset. A lot of people think they need, well, I just need to know how to make money, or I need to know how to sell this, or I need to know what to say when I'm talking to a prospect and they say this, what do I say back? All right, those are all tactical and strategic things. It's not that those things don't matter, they do matter. But the mindset is the most important, because if you don't have the mindset, I can give you all the tactics and strategies in the world, you will fumble the ball. All right, it won't work. The mindset is the first thing. So that's why we start with the mindset. So Taylor, great question. Thank you for asking. Number 4, we are answering questions from my text community. I think we'll take this, maybe get a couple more and we'll see how much time this takes. And we'll break this up. Number 4, question is from Kristen in Haymarket, Virginia. It was interesting looking at these towns. These are towns I've never heard of that some of you are living in. Haymarket, Virginia. Kristen says, what's the first thing we should ask ourselves or focus on when developing a strategy for building an ecosystem for clients to live in? That's a pretty good question. A long question, but it's a clear question. So it's a good question from Kristen. Let me say the question again. What's the first thing we should ask ourselves or focus on when we're developing a strategy for building an ecosystem for our clients to live in? Okay, so this is a person who has a client-based business and they want to create an ecosystem, like a space where their clients can go and get all the things that they need from the expert, who let's assume that Kristen is the expert. The first thing you should ask yourself or focus on is, what is the outcome that the client needs to get? That's the first question you should ask yourself. So I could end it right there, but I'll give context. That's the first question. What does your client need? All of you as salespeople, number one question you should always ask yourself is, what is the outcome that the person who I'm serving needs or wants? And they may not be the same thing, because what the client wants and what the client needs may be two different things. So I just told you this. somebody may come to me and say, Dre, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm making $1,000 a month from my side hustle. I want to make $10,000 a month so I can go full time in my business. That's what they want. Now, what do they need? It's different. What they need is, first of all, they need the mindset to where they can actually maybe charge higher prices for what they're offering. Maybe they need the mindset of stop selling these $100 products and let's sell a $10,000 product so you don't got to make one sale a month. Maybe they need the mindset of let's get your money mindset right so you can stop being okay with $1,000 a month and be okay with 10 times that per month, because their mindset may be the very thing holding them back. Maybe nothing wrong with what they're doing, but their mindset might be the thing holding them back. So number one thing they need is mindset. That's why at Work on Your Game University, number one thing we start with is mindset. Number two, once we have the mindset in place, now we can put in a game plan, a strategy, a plan of action. What exactly are we going to do? So if you start operating a plan of action without the right mindset, it's not going to work. You hear me talk all the time about be, do, and have. Being is the mindset. Doing is the strategy. So the next part is the strategy. What is the game plan for us actually making this happen? Now, once I know what you're doing and what you're offering and who you're serving, then I can help you put the strategy together. This is why we have coaching. Third thing is the system. Once you know what you're doing, this is all part of the doing. Be, do, have. So doing has two parts to it. So the doing is the plan, and then it's the system. The system is how do we operate this plan over and over and over and over again, and like clockwork. How do we make it keep working? So think of a place like McDonald's. The burger comes out the same way every time. Why? Because they have a system, not because the people are super disciplined. No, they're not. It's the system. Because McDonald's are entry-level workers. These people may be the least disciplined out there in the whole workforce, but they still produce the same product every time. Why? Because the system is stronger than the people. You get what I'm saying? So the system is how do we do this over and over and over and over again so it keeps working. That's the third part we put in. And then the last part is about the accountability and execution. That's making sure that you stay on point, keep doing what you need to do. When you start slipping up, how do we fix it? If you're having challenges, how do we address it? If you're not executing the right way, let's figure out why you're not executing. This is the coaching part. A lot of times when people come into coaching, that's one of the things that I hear often. People say, well, Dre, I just need somebody to hold me accountable. I know what I need to do. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I've done it at certain times, but I'm not doing it consistently enough. Can somebody hold me accountable and just hold my feet to the fire and make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing? That's the accountability. Now, Kristen, everything I just explained to you is my answer to what people need when they come into Work on Your Game University. Now, has any client ever come to me and said, Dre, you know what I need? I need mindset, strategy, systems, and execution, and accountability. So please, do you have that? Nobody's ever come to me and said that. All right, that said, nobody ever. I know that's what they need. Now, what they want may be something completely different. They might say, I want to run my own business. I want to make $100,000 a year. I want to quit my job. I want to make sure I'm maximizing myself and squeezing all the juice out of my potential. And I explain to them in one way or another, again, going back to what we talked about in the episode on several episodes back, we talked about addition by subtraction. You got to know what the big domino is. You need to know what the big domino is for the person you're talking to. And they're telling you what the big domino is when they tell you what they want. All right, so what is it that you want, Mr. Client, Mr. Prospect? They tell you what it is. That's the big domino. You need to position your offering as to it serves that big domino. Now, there's a strategy and a whole process of doing that. There's a game plan to doing that. That's all part of your sales presentation. And this is something that, again, in Work on Your Game University, we coach people on how to do this and structure your presentation and have your sales conversations such that you present what you're offering as the answer to what they need. Now, if you don't know how to do this, again, as I just told you, you'll fumble the ball. So this is why we have a whole process for doing this. This is why I wrote a book called The Seller's Mindset. And this is why we have a course and a framework in the university called Sell Yourself. We got another one called the Business Builder Framework. We have the Work on Your Game system. So I'm not making these up, folks. All of this is part of the university. So this is a great question, Christian. And hopefully that gives you the answer that you need, or at least point you in the right direction. And the direction, Kristen, is Work on Your Game University. It's a good question, but just an answer alone is probably not going to give you everything that you need. Hopefully you don't take this and go fumble the ball in your business, but you need a process for doing this. And in the university, we got that process. So with that said, we're going to wrap up this first part here. So who knows how many parts this is going to take, depending on how much time I decide to take on each answer. So those are the first 4 questions. I'll just recap what the questions were. I'm not going to recap my answers. But Drew asked, if you go back and tell your younger self anything, what would you tell them? Paul said, how do I discover what I'm passionate about? Taylor asked, how do you shift your mindset from motivation and discipline? And Kristen asked, what's the first thing to focus on when developing a strategy for an ecosystem for your clients? So tomorrow we'll be getting into the next part here, and again, who knows how many parts it's going to take. I'm answering questions from the text community. You want to be in it, text me at my number 305-384-6894. Comes out every single day, daily motivation, and some other perks and bonuses like me asking you to give me a question and I might answer on my podcast. And workonyourgameuniversity.com, you heard me mention it in the answer to every one of these questions. That is where you get coached by me. That's where you get direct help from me. That's where you take things to the next level, and you can stop nickel and diming and playing around out here, and let's get serious about taking your game where it wants to go. As I said, we just opened up a new group program that will be easy for anyone to get into. You want to get into that program, just text me, hey Dre, what's that group program you were talking about? Or go to workonyourgameuniversity.com and schedule a call with us. Either way, you need to get in that program. We are, and everybody who asked me these questions, you four, Drew, Paul, Taylor, Kristen, all right, it's for you and everybody else. Tomorrow, we'll get into part 2. Work on your game. Dre all day.